Hey, my name is George O'Connor, and in this interview series, which we're cleverly calling Charlie Spotlight, I want to introduce you to the creative team behind the new comic Charlie Spot. And we're going to kick it off with illustrator Meredith Laxton. Meredith was an absolute dream to work with as a collaborator and storyteller. She's incredibly talented, so good with comments and instincts and feedback. She really took the script from Charlie Spot and elevated it to a place that made me love it even more. And I am thrilled to introduce you to her if you haven't met her yet. So this is my interview with Meredith. Enjoy. So I like to start off these interviews by making the other person as uncomfortable as possible, because we are all artists, which means it's tough to take compliments. So this is going to be an opening monologue about how awesome you are. So, you know, I just went through our emails, and we have been together for over 2 years at this point. And you know, when we connected, and we'll probably talk about that later. I mean, I had already loved this project. I was passionate about it. And then as the fates would bring us together, to find somebody who became just as passionate about it as me, and elevated it beyond what I had hoped. It was amazing to watch it build into what it has become. And so much of that is because of you. Not only your talents, I mean, you know, the talent is absolutely there, but when you put passion and care into it with the talent, you get something. I'm a kid on Christmas morning ready to show these people this book. So
yeah, I'm excited too.
I'm just going to start by saying thank you for being you.
Thank you.
For, like I said, taking something I love and somehow making me love it even more.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you to say. It really warms my heart.
So we will wrap around back to Charlie Spot and all how we got here. But as always, I want to know the secret origin of Meredith. So nobody picks up a pencil, looks at a piece of paper, and goes, "This is how I'm gonna get my mansion."
It's definitely not how you get a mansion.
You know, it seems like the comic industry is filled with people who just love comics. So I'm curious what your origin story, what got you.
Well, I will confess that growing up, I really wasn't that big into comics. I liked graphic novels, I would say, like, you know, thick, a lot of like graphic memoirs and stuff. Or like really just anything that had pictures that to help tell a story, I was so fascinated with. And initially, when I was kind of making those moves to decide what I wanted to do with my life, I was really inspired by tabletop games and like Dungeons and Dragons and the illustrations in those books. And so initially I was like, I want to make games. I want to make video games or just do these kind of world building, storytelling illustrations for the gaming industry. And I did actually do that for a little while. After I graduated from my first phase of college, because I later went back for my master's because I'm insane. But I got a job working as a concept artist for a independent game company called Puny Human. And we worked on this game called Galicide, and it was like this space shooter puzzler. And it was a lot of fun. Like, I loved it. And the product, in my opinion, is beautiful. and like, I'm so proud of it, and I love to talk about it. But the experience made me realize, like, this isn't really how I want to tell stories. And around that time, I picked up this like online free course that this professor was doing, and it was about gender in comics. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. Like, I don't have anything better to do. Let me like pick this up. And like, that's really what got me into reading more mainstream comics and not just like the indie graphic novels that I had been picking up every now and then. And I think that's really when it dawned on me. I was like, yeah, this is the kind of stories I want to tell. Like, I want to tell you know, the story with my art, not just like, you know, I guess that be a weird vehicle for telling the story. I don't know. Uh, but I didn't really know how to do that. And I didn't really have like any kind of community of friends that were also doing comics. So my brilliant idea was like, I'm going to go for my master's in specifically comic making. I got a master's of fine arts in sequential art. So my mom was like in this weird phase where she was like kind of proud, but she didn't want to tell people what I was doing. She'd be like, yeah, my daughter, she's like going for her master's. And people are like, oh, what is she studying? And she'd be like, comics. so you know, I mean, it is what it is. I learned a lot, and it was a great experience. And that's how I got connected with you, because I met Andy Schmidt of Source Point through SCAD is where I went, and he connected me with you, and now here I am.
That's fantastic. So I mean, the other thing that I think how you were able to elevate Charlie Spot is that you are a storyteller yourself, and like all artists are storytellers, but you also write and create and your own stuff as well. So was there story making in your world before going to SCAD?
Yeah, a little bit. Not so much like professionally. I never like put anything out there, but I did love to write. Like, that was just something I enjoyed doing in my free time. And with my friends, we would kind of like collab on stories together. And part of that is also like something very common in people who play Dungeons and Dragons. Like when you're playing D&D, you're basically like contributing a portion of the storytelling along with everybody else in the group. But I mean, more so, I really enjoyed coming up with characters and like narratives surrounding them. And I just couldn't get past the like, okay, now draw it, you know, right. For a long time. I was like, oh, it's just going to be in my head and eventually it'll manifest somehow. Yeah.
So beyond being drawn to the illustrations from D&D, you were also playing as well?
Yeah. I used to play in my friend's garage at like very late weekends. Like when I was in high school, we would stay up till 4 a.m. playing D&D in his garage, and then we'd go to IHOP and eat pancakes.
That sounds like an absolutely perfect weekend right there, man.
Yeah, it was fun. I can't do that anymore. I can't stay up that late, but back in the day it was great. Yeah.
I never did a bunch of campaigns, but off the top of my head, like 2 of them that I did that would lasted years. Like I still have fond memories, and basically what you said. Remember when we had the time to do all of that, because it was
yeah.
I had a hell of an archer.
Oh yeah.
Pretty damn rad.
Yeah.
So you're drawing this entire time as well with an eye towards creating your own stuff, or was SCAD the launching off point for the sequential art portion?
Before I had gone to SCAD, I did contribute one comic piece to an anthology that one of my friends was doing. And that was like my very first comic ever. And it was so bad. But like I don't know, I really enjoyed the experience. And I think that's when it really dawned on me. I was like, okay, I love drawing people and characters and just drawing in general. And like, this is how I should focus that now. And so it was right before going to SCAD when I realized, like, okay, now I know what to do. I just have to learn how to do it.
Right. Yeah. And I know, going to school, some artists are for it. Some artists, it isn't for them. For anybody who's going to be watching this, who's curious about it. What was your thought process of deciding whether or not to, go back to school?
So I definitely think that there is merit in going to school and learning on your own. I don't think you have to go to art school nowadays. I mean, all the resources are online. Um, and it's expensive. Like I'll probably be in debt forever, but I mean, I think all millennials are. It's fine, whatever. But oh, where was I going with that? When I was in high school, I initially wanted to go to SCAD. Like,
Oh, okay.
that was like my dream. I was like, I'm gonna go to SCAD, but for whatever reason, maybe I was like scared. I don't know. I decided to stay in state and go to a state school and kind of pursue like a very broad range design degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't regret it. I learned a lot from that as well, and I feel like I still apply a lot of what I learned then in what I do now, especially like professionally. But I didn't really have like the art school experience or like the art school community that a lot of people do get from going to a very structured, specific art college.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's been very helpful for me. I think what I gained the most from going to art school was the people, the connections I made and the networking. But you don't have to go to school to do that anymore. It's like, it's all online. It's all at your fingertips on your phone. So it really is a personal choice. Everyone has a different journey. I think, it doesn't matter how you get there, really. You know, just always be practicing and always trying to improve, I guess.
Yeah, and I think maybe going to SCAD afterwards, having that little bit of a distance, maybe that helped. The reason I say that is I went back to get my master's in advertising 10 years after I graduated, got my undergrad, and I just realized it was the first time I was in school and I actually understood why I was there. And it made all the difference as far as my focus, my grades, all that stuff is like, I knew what was at the other end of the tunnel. And again, for me, who was like, a fine student, best grades I ever got was in theory, in supposed to be the toughest of my academic, courses or arena.
Yeah.
But it's because I knew why I was there, and I got to for a year and a half, I got to go back to school as an adult, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And be surrounded by creative people, learning to be better creatives.
Yeah. I definitely feel like my undergraduate experience was almost like a high school 2.0 in the sense that I didn't really have direction. Like I had an idea of kind of what I wanted to do, but I was still trying to figure it out. And then, when I got my degree, I was like, well, what do I do with this? And then, it took a little while of like working different jobs and doing different things. And when I went to grad school, I was like, okay, this is like the direction. Like I have a better understanding. Like this is the, this field that I want to do. And so I think for many people, grad school is a way to really just hone in that specific thing that you're trying to figure out that you want.
Who are you at this point, as you're kind of going through this artistic journey and going back to SCAD, who are your influences? Who are, who's getting your creative juices flowing?
A lot of people. I mean, there's a broader range of artists that I like really admire, and most of them I don't even know their names. I just know their like Instagram handles. But also like my friends in general. Like I had a friend before going into SCAD that was the main push for me to go get my master's, and she had actually gone to SCAD. She was a graphic design student, and like I don't know, it was like I would tell her like, yeah, I kind of want to do comics, and she'd be like, do it. Like, and it was like that was kind of the push that I needed to really pursue this thing that I wanted to do. And her name was Grace, and she's pretty cool. Occasionally like still kind of talk to her, but not as often anymore. And, just as you get older, people move away and stuff. But Yeah, and as far as like artists go, like I said, I still love graphic novels, and I'm still constantly like spending money on them. I'm actually trying to read more manga now. Like
Oh, okay.
when I was in high school, I used to be like really into manga, and then I put it away, and now I'm trying to pick it up again. Um, and I'm just always trying to find like new artists to kind of steal from. You know, like they say, like you steal from as many people as possible, and then you make like a unique thing that's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, I'm with you. Like, and over the last year and a half, I've done like a conscious decision to add more artists to my, Twitter timeline.
Hmm.
One for the inspiration, two to help break up everything else that Twitter
Yeah.
is, for better or for worse. And it is inspiring to see, how many amazing artists are out there. And
Hmm.
I don't know about you, but every now and then I'll find somebody that just blows me away, and I'll look
Hmm.
at it, they've got like 150 followers, and it's
Oh
like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
like, it's like there's no justice in the world that,
Hmm.
this person over here has, a minuscule amount of people. You kind of want to, you run up the flagpole and,
Yeah, yeah.
just like, look at this thing I discovered.
Hmm.
um so yeah, so then I guess that brings us to Andy
Hmm.
from Comics Experience. And um so again, this is, whatever you want to call it, kismet, luck, fortune, or whatever.
Hmm.
The backstory to all of this is there was another artist attached to
Hmm.
Charlie. Her name's Meredith Moriarty. She's incredibly talented. But when it kind of came time to start making the thing, she just wasn't able to.
Hmm.
And I'll skip to the end. It seemed to work out great for everybody.
Hmm.
Because again, what you've done is gorgeous and amazing, and she has an Eisner nominated web series.
Hmm.
So I think, everything worked out as it should. And I'm curious if there would, what about the story kind of struck you? Because, again, we'll probably poke at this a little more. I mean, what blew me away, and, I might not have been able to articulate it at the time, but I can now, is like it wasn't just an artist drawing a story. You were putting so much more into it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm just curious,
Hmm.
what kind of hooked you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, before I get into the very like heartfelt stuff, I have a funny story about Andy. When I first met him and I was showing him my portfolio, he and I were in a room together, and there was like a wasp in the room, and he was like, "Meredith, if you kill that bug, I'll give you a job," and I did. And so I think I part you said like, "Oh, it's luck," and I'm like, I just killed a bug.
It's
And I got
murder.
this job. I just murdered this bug and I got a job. No, but anyway, so back to the serious point. So when you reached out to me, or maybe it was Andy, one of you reached out to me and you told me like the premise of the story, which I don't want to like talk about spoilers. But there's this character named Charlie, and he's an older guy, and he's kind of dealing with these issues surrounding his family. And at the time, my father was just diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer. And I just felt like the timing was so like monumental for me. And I was like, I have to do this book. Like, I have to, like, if anything, like, this was like one of my first like steps into the professional industry. And I was like, if my dad is going to be around to see this, like, I have to do this and I have to do it good. And that's really what made me 100% like get on board and say like, yes, I want to do this story. Absolutely.
um you shared with me that part
Mhm.
after we had already gone, after, at this point, it's all a blur. I don't know how many pages or books we were into it
Mm-hmm.
when you told me about your dad and the inspiration for the visual design of Charlie. Once you said that, so much of what I was seeing and feeling on your work, on your pages, made so much sense,
Mm-hmm.
and again, that's that elevation of, you know, draftsman skill versus, blood, sweat, tears, and passion.
Yeah, yeah. So the inspiration for Charlie's design, it was my dad. Like I knew from the very beginning, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this look like my dad, which kind of bit me in the butt later, which we can talk about.
We can talk about
But
anything.
yeah, yeah. So, well, when my dad did pass, it made the working on the book very difficult for a little while. I was like trying to draw him. I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Like I can't do this right now. But you know, early in my dad's chemo journey, my sister sent me a picture of him before, like really at the beginning of his phase, and um, it was like this very beautiful like portrait. I don't know who took the picture, but he's wearing like this beanie, like this cap, and there's like a little feather in it, and he's just kind of looking off to the side, and it was like, that's when I knew. I was like, Charlie has to have a hat like that. No other thing. Like I don't want him to ever take the hat. I mean, there's a couple scenes where he takes the hat off, but like I felt like that was very important to his design for me, and especially to kind of carry on that sort of like energy that my dad had in the photo. Do you want me to
Yeah,
pull it
yeah,
up
yeah.
now? Yeah. I actually had my sister send it to me again. I'm sure I have this photo saved like 8 times on my phone, but this is the photo in particular. And even his jacket and like everything about this whole vibe, I was like, okay, this is Charlie. Like it's my dad. It's everybody's dad, I guess, in a way. Yeah.
I Words are gonna fail how much I appreciate you sharing your dad with the book.
Hmm.
And as of this recording, in 5 days with, you know,
Hmm.
Kickstarter with the world and all
Oh
that.
yeah.
And I can't tell you how happy I am to have him be a part of the book. I'm
Yeah.
so glad. I'm
I was
so
very
glad.
appreciative that you were so like supportive of that as well. And later in the third book, you asked me what my dad's name was, and you named a diner after him, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna cry.
It's I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that was probably the point.
Yeah.
But it's like all of this stuff. Hopefully someday we will graduate to a level where we aren't grinding.
Hmm.
Um, and again, this process. I mean, we could probably look through the emails and see foolishly how soon we thought we would complete this book. Life gets lifey.
Hmm. Hmm.
In the best scenarios, life gets lifey. So when you're grinding along at this level, there has to be that love and passion and support and
Hmm.
collaboration just to get the damn thing over the finish line
Yes. Yeah.
in the best of scenarios. So
Hmm.
what we can control is the thing we make and the attitude and energy we bring to it.
Hmm.
So to know how your dad was fueling you, I mean, that's it. Again, I just felt honored that you were going to bring your dad into the book.
Hmm.
And if it acted as a beacon or a flotation device
Hmm. Hmm.
during some of the rougher times of just just making the thing.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, sometimes it was very motivating and other times it was a hindrance where like I couldn't work on it because I was kind of grieving basically. And I really appreciate that you had been very patient with me during those times too, because like you said, life gets lifey, and um, I think all things considered, like we worked really hard to really make the book as great as it is. Like I think it looks amazing. I'm so thrilled with the final product, and I know it did take a long time to get there, but we made it, and it's it's amazing.
We made
Yeah.
it. We're still talking. We are
Mhm.
looking forward to talking, and really that's
Mhm.
it. Like, at the end of any creative project, my hope is that, and we're still friends at the end of it,
Yeah.
you know
Mhm.
and we're everybody leans on everybody
Mhm.
at some point. So I can't think of another way to do a project,
Mhm. Mhm.
than collaborative, and supporting each other.
Mhm.
So kind of taking off of that collaboration, what I found so satisfying and almost relieving
Mhm.
when we started working and it carried out through all 80 pages of this book is how you took the script. Understood what I was going for, understood what the scene needed,
Mhm.
and then when appropriate, and as far as I know it was like always appropriate, change it, whether it was
Mhm.
adding panels, reducing panels, moving action, camera angles, that type of thing. What became so wonderful was knowing that, one, I didn't feel like I had to be perfect,
Mhm.
because I knew I could share with you what I was thinking, and you could basically yes and it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that and is where the joy of getting the pages back
Mhm.
came from. So I'm just kind of curious, as a storyteller, like I guess, and I keep we're going to talk about this before we wrap up here, but you are a full, well-rounded storyteller in your own right. It just so happens in this case, we're working together to bring this to life.
Mhm.
So when you're taking in a script, how, and I don't know if you can put this into words, but how are you kind of like ingesting it and making those
Mhm.
decisions of adding, subtracting, tweaking, pushing, and pulling the timing of
Mhm.
the book?
Mhm. That's a good question. I will try my best to try to put it into words. But what I like about comics is how similar they are to movies in a way, and the editing of movies. So when I'm reading something, and it may not even be a script, it may just be like a book, like prose. Like I definitely envision it in my head as if I'm watching a movie, and so when there's not dialogue, I can imagine like, okay, this is a cut to something that is not on the characters at all,
Yeah.
maybe, or like maybe there is like a pause between the character saying something and then another character's reactions. I think it just comes down to consuming a lot of media. like um yeah, I mean, I guess that's how I would describe it. It's just like kind of this understanding of like pacing, that you get when you kind of break apart things that you're reading or watching, and just understanding like, okay, in this scene, why did the director cut to a shot of a sandwich on a table? Like, is it important? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. So yeah, I honestly think if that's something that like if other artists want to get better at, or writers even, is to just like start paying attention to
Mhm.
when storytellers do things like that. I'm not the best at it. I'm not trying to like gloat. I'm just saying like it comes with like consuming media basically, and just interpreting things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of like aha moments or inspirational storytelling, whether it is from movies or graphic novels that you read? Are there any moments that kind of jumped out at you that still kind of inform
Yeah.
your process?
So one of the things that I am trying to kind of get better at is like page layout.
Mm,
Because as a comic artist, like you're not just drawing like, frames by frames, like you're drawing the whole page and it has to look good all like together. And so when I'm reading comics, I always try to pay attention to like the panel sizes and the placement. And there's a few books that come to mind specifically. The Tom King's Mr. Miracle,
yeah.
drawn by Mitch Gerrard's. Like every page is a nine panel grid, and it like every page is exactly the same layout, but the art in the panels like makes it so unique. That I mean, it's so simple, but it's so effective. And then also there is a European comic called Sandcastles,
Hmm.
written and drawn by Frederick Peters, I think. And he uses like the same template of panel structure like every page. And it's like you don't even notice it unless you're paying attention. And um, it's like I love simple and effective. And so those are things that I kind of look at and try to emulate in a way. But also, I'm trying to also like break out of that too and try to do some more dynamic, like fun things too, like things popping out and you know, I don't know.
Well, no, like
I don't know what I'm doing.
it's all a journey, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think like something in this book that I know I tried to do as I was just crafting it, just as a writer, things that I enjoyed. And it's funny you bring up Mr. Miracle, because I think not only that book, but like Tom King in general
Hmm.
with his pacing. I am a sucker for basically comics, silent comic beats
Hmm.
in comics. I think Mr. Miracle has a bunch of those that are
Hmm.
just wonderful. And so as I was kind of putting Charlie together as a script, I wanted to do some of those just because I enjoyed, as a reader, I enjoyed them.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed kind of like the pushing and pulling of the timing
Hmm.
of a
Hmm.
comic. And man, one of the things that just made me just so happy and just become a Meredith stan so quickly is there's a moment in issue one, which is what we're kickstarting,
Hmm.
where I wrote one of those beats, like one character walks off, the other character stays, and then the other character walks off, with a little button to
Hmm.
as the end of it.
Hmm.
And in my head, I'm like, I think that'll be funny.
Hmm.
And then to get the pages back, and it's like, you know, again, it's what I saw, but better.
Hmm. Oh,
And
thank you.
seeing that, we also, I don't think we had a whole lot of, we never really like talked. I don't know if
Hmm.
this is good or bad. We never really talked a lot about the scripts.
Hmm. Hmm.
We would have a quick check-in because I hate typing. So I would much rather babble to you on the phone
Hmm.
to go over, the script. Those were maybe half an hour, 45-minute calls.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I never went to like, okay, page 7, panel 4 and 5. It's really important that blah blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't do that. That's also just not in my nature.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of like, look, that's the target over there.
Hmm.
However you want to get there,
Hmm.
go for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was one of those moments where I was like, oh, she gets it.
Yeah, yeah.
You
I
know,
think your scripts were also just very like concise enough where I could tell
good.
like, okay, this is a moment where he wants a comedic beat of silence. So like that carried through very easily. I understood like, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, this is okay. Yeah, I got
I got it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and but that's also the hope on, you know, on my end is that if you make it concise enough, but, you know, I guess concise and wide enough, that the you get to do you, you know, it's not just, you know, cranking out what's on the page and that's that, you know, the hope is and was that, you know, like I said, that's the target, however you want to get there. And then the page will be, you know, better, wonderful, or, you know, you feel like you can bring yourself into it. Because again, like, you know, people are going to find out very soon what an amazing storyteller you are. You know, I'm very lucky. Well, I guess I'm not that, because stuff has been announced, but you know, with Charlie coming out now, you know what, let's MPLS has been, no, I always get those four letters wrong.
It's yes, MPLS has been announced. It should be out in April.
Yeah, so you know, come late spring through the summer next year, you know, you're gonna be out there a lot, and people are gonna get to see years of hard. That's the funny thing, is, you know, when I think about you and 2021, and again, because I get to be behind the curtain a little bit, there'll be a lot of people who, you know, it's going to be kind of like that overnight success, or like, where did she come from? Oh, she came from the 3 years of grinding.
Yeah. This has just been like going on in the background, and nobody like you know, steps out into the limelight after not having done all that work, you know. There's, I mean, what I mean to say is, like, nobody sees like the grind before that moment where it's like, oh, where did they come from? Like, all of a sudden there's like, no, man, they've been like working in the background like for 5 years. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm excited for that book as well. You know, you're doing that with Joe Illidge.
Yep, he's great.
Joe's one of my favorite guys, simply because he's a good guy.
Yeah.
You know, he in the comic books industry, he's done more and he's forgotten more than we will ever do. But every time I run into him, he is super nice. He's super engaged. I will take a bullet for that man, because there was a New York Comic-Con. It was Sunday afternoon, New York Comic-Con. No one has any energy. No one can put that happy face, that happy smile on anymore. We just need it to become 5 o'clock. And I'm just walking through the floor in my own head, and I just hear, you know, George, and I turn around and it's Joe. And instantly I was like, he didn't have to do that. Like, everybody's gassed. He could have just let me go.
Yeah.
Right? But he didn't, you know, and we had a really nice, you know, conversation, a couple minutes. But that kind of told me, like, the person that he is on top of his resume. So I'm just curious, you know, like, so this book is coming out from two people I'm fans of. You know, I mean, forget being a co-creator and a collaborator with you. I'm a fan of yours. So tell me, so we can tell them about the book.
About MPLS Sound? Yeah. So MPLS Sound, it's another one of those books where somebody pitched it to me and I was like, I have to do this book. So it is about a girl, Teresa, who is trying to sort of follow in the footsteps of Prince and become, you know, this like profound musician, and she gets this band together. And I love Prince, so I was like on board from the very second. And that book also went through a lot of iterative process as well, where like the initial script that I was working on, I did 30 pages off of a script that was written by a different writer, Hannibal Taboo. And they ended up revising it, and that's when Joe came in, and he really switched up a lot of things. But the downside was all those 30 pages that I had to be we kind of cut them up to make them fit with the new script, but yeah, it was like 30 pages, which is, it's fine. Like, it happens. I can't be too mad about it. But the thing that I love the most about Impula Sound is it's really about like a young woman who is like gaining her own voice and like inspiring others. And, she also has dad stuff, which like I wasn't expecting. And then when that came up, I was like, man, why is this always, I was going to do this dad stuff. But no, I mean, it's great. Like, my friend Tan Shu worked on the colors, and like she did a phenomenal job. And Jen Bartel did the cover. And so if anything, I'm like, buy it because Jen Bartel did the cover.
Tough to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a start.
Mm-hmm.
That is very cool.
Thank you.
Like I said, when you told me about it, I was psyched for you, and seeing it come out and everything. Like I said, beyond the collaborative side, I'm really excited for your 2021. If everything goes right, I am hoping that there will be some convention where I'll be trying to shout over your bodyguards to let them know, no, we did a book once. We did a book, as you are whisked, you must be whisked away.
Oh,
for
okay.
Your own safety, and really the safety of everybody involved.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. That's the dream.
So, now that you've, it feels like long, but it also feels like a relatively short period of time, you've worked on a bunch of stuff with a bunch of different writers, different creatives. And as you've gone through all of those different creative journeys, I'm curious what, as a creator yourself, not only a storyteller, but, as a collaborative artist, what are some of, I don't know, the similarities and the differences? Like, what, as the artist working with another collaborator, what advice can you give, and we'll go both ways, to any writers who are watching this and want to be good collaborators to their artists?
What advice I can give to writers trying to get it in the comics industry? I think, I mean, reading comics is always going to be my number one, and it's not just to learn how to write a certain way, but just to like try to get the idea of what the script would look like from the pages that you're seeing. I think communicating with artists, like trying to make friends with artists. One thing that always kind of irks me is like I get like messages out of the blue from people that are like, "What's your page rate? I'm working on a story," and I'm like, "Who are you?"
I'm really glad you brought that up, and actually, so we don't lose that thread. I apologize. I'm going to derail you real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is something that I still struggle with. Is how to properly introduce myself to somebody out of the blue. I think it'd be great to, hear your side of that conversation as somebody who gets that email out of the blue. How can anybody contacting an artist, how, because there just have to be barriers that you when anybody approaches. So how can someone best approach an artist to come across as sincere and professional?
That is a hard question to answer, especially because I'm kind of a socially awkward person. So I'm not the best when it comes to social etiquette. I will say that I am a lot more inclined to accept those kind of proposals if there is some kind of what's the word for it? Like a reference from another person that I know. So for instance, like I met Andy and Andy said like, oh, I've got George, she's working on this. There was another instance where I worked on like a couple pages for someone, and it was actually an old professor of mine that had contacted me and said, hey, like there's this writer who wants to do some pages and like I can't do it, would you like to do it? So I think like having more than one point of contact to someone, if you want to really network with them, that I think is important. But like, don't do it in a stalkery way, if that makes sense. I honestly, I think just like communicating with people, like trying to be upfront, connecting, you know, like, oh, let's, you know, share social medias or Twitter or whatever. Honestly, I think the most important thing in this day and age is to just, you know, make contact early and start like a conversation rather than off the bat saying like, hi, you don't know me, but I'm doing this book. What's your page rate? Like that's kind of rude, I guess. and most of the time, like I can't really, I'm busy. I can't really do that right now.
Right.
Yeah. And I think also it's important to have like a plan for what your book is going to be. And you have a plan to publish it and actually make it a thing happen. Because if you have this great idea, but like you don't, I mean, how is it gonna, you know, is it money or like a Kickstarter, or do you have a publisher interested already? Like having that as like backup to say like, oh, this isn't just like some crazy, like, you know, 10 issue thing that I came up with. Like I actually have this idea to actually make it a thing. So like, yes, that's, I think is the most important. Yeah.
And just because you said it, and I just want to dive right into it because again, I am, you know, I don't know if you noticed, I'm a white guy. Yeah. So I don't, I hear stories. I hear lots of stories, but I don't know what it's like to be on the other side. So let's just hit right back. If someone's going to contact you, how do they not be stalkery? Sometimes it feels like a fine line, and I might say that, and you're like, no, dude, it's a huge line, and people still trip over it. So, you know, on your end, what throws up the red stalkery flags?
Well, I've been pretty fortunate to not have a lot of experiences like that, and I think part of that is because I am kind of a small, you know, nobody really knows me yet. But I think like maybe the biggest thing is like the content of what you're trying to pitch and like being able to read the room. You know, this happened to a friend of mine who's a male, but like I can see it happening to a you know, a non-binary female artist or female identifying artist at any point where like someone came up to him and commissioned him to draw Wonder Woman, but they were like, yeah, but like have her holding her boobs, like really pushing them up. And like, I know stuff like that happens like all the time. And, you know, maybe because he was a guy, the person commissioning him thought it was more comfortable to ask him for stuff like that. And maybe he might not have asked a female artist to do that. I have no idea. I think it's just like a manner of being respectful and like trying to, you know, read the context clues of like who you're talking to. You know, I don't think anyone is going to look at me and, you know, say like, hey, like I've got like this stripperella story. Like, I just want to know if you'd be like interested in drawing like a bunch of like big old, you know, so, big old, you know what I mean, you know? Yeah, I mean, it's things that have been coming up in the industry regarding like how we treat minority, female, LGBT creators in the community. it doesn't feel good, but I think things are getting better.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Mhm.
Thank you for taking that journey with me. Like I said,
Yeah, yeah,
it is something I am cognizant of,
yeah.
and never want to put somebody in an
Hmm.
awkward position by lazy phrasing or
Yeah, yeah.
coming with the wrong information.
Hmm. Hmm.
So thank you for kind of walking me through
Yeah, yeah, of
that
course.
part.
I mean, I think everyone is still learning every day. Like, it's important to keep an open mind, and like, I don't know all the answers. Like, I probably say offensive stuff all the time, and I don't even realize it. It's just kind of an unfortunate truth to the way that things are. As long as you can just like accept that you said something or done something that was hurtful or demeaning in a way, and just do better. No.
And bring us back to where we were about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, as an artist working with other writers and collaborators,
Hmm.
what makes a good collaborative situation, a teamwork for you?
Hmm.
That for universal,
Hmm.
teaching of
Um, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I've had a few different experiences and different approaches with different creators. You were very open to collaboration, and we had conversations on the phone, and there were moments where like we got to work on the plot together. Specifically, like the ending of the book. That was one thing that we kind of went back and forth on, and I gave you my ideas, and you took those and did what you thought was best. And I've had experiences where like I didn't get to have any input, and I
Mm.
was fine with that. Sometimes it is just a job, and it's like, okay, you want me to draw this? Okay, I'm going to draw it. Um, Honestly, I think just being open to both kinds of experiences is important, because like, especially as an artist, if you're working professionally, like sometimes you just have to draw the thing and you don't really get to like change it because it's not necessarily yours. And sometimes you do get to have more input. Um, and sometimes if you think something is a bad decision, like you have to do it anyway. I never had any experiences like that working on Charlie Spot, but in the past, like I remember there was one time I was working on this project where like a character's hair would change and to signify like a passage of time, but then like it would change back to the very next, like it was kind of like confusing to me, and I was like, I feel like to readers this is going to be confusing. And then the writer was like, oh, no, 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 it's people change their hair all the time. And I was like, well, yeah, that's true, but when you're reading comics, I feel like some things kind of have to be like codified, simplified a little more with like character design. But I mean, like I said, like I didn't really like argue it too much. I was like, okay, if that's what you want, I'll do it. No big deal. So yeah, just flexibility.
Yeah. So with my my day job is advertising copywriting, and
Hmm.
I that sounds similar, where
Hmm.
you're given a project and you do your very best,
Hmm.
and sometimes that you just okay. If, I've shown you what I think it could be. I've explained to you why it could be this way. If you want it the way you want it, I've made myself clear. You have made yourself clear.
Hmm.
Here's the thing you asked for.
Hmm.
you know, Spell checked and all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I just want to go back to the ending,
Hmm.
where you talked about it, because like the story had lived in my head for so long, and the ending I had in my head was in my head for so long, and walking around going, and that's a good ending.
Hmm.
And then we had talked about it, and you would just you said, here's what I think, and that moment of like, oh, that's a good ending,
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
that's the ending.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, that's the stuff that I love, and why uh, I would much rather be a collaborator than like
Hmm.
a dictator.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
like I don't, and this is definitely born out from, this is where kind of like my worlds of like advertising and comics, but creation in general starts to overlap is that, you know, I don't care where the good idea comes from. Like, you know, in the advertising world, you know, I might be the
Mm-hmm.
copywriter, which means, you know, I'm the expert on words, but that doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to have the answer, isn't going to
Mm-hmm.
have the great line or the
Mm-hmm.
solution to it.
Mm-hmm.
And why would I stop a better solution, a better solution to the problem because of my fucking ego? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
dumb. We're not here for my ego.
Yeah.
We're here to make the thing, whatever it is, whether it's a song, whether it's a comic, whether it's an ad. We're
Mm-hmm.
here to make the
Mm-hmm.
thing as good as it can be. And that's the goal. So who, you know, again, who cares how we get there? Who cares, you know, who has the great idea? Is it a great idea? Does it elevate the whole
Mm-hmm.
thing?
Yeah,
Um,
I think also like just opening yourself up to critique is very important, and getting more people to look at your thing and
yeah.
give you their opinions. I've had the exact same experience where I've worked on my own story and I'm like, this is a good idea. And then I would send it to my agent and she'd be like, I don't know about this. Like, let's try to like change it up to be a different audience. And then I would come up with something like leagues better. And I'd be like so excited, like, oh my God, thank you for telling me that, you know, my original idea was not great. Like, I made up something so much better.
That, and yeah, that's the type of feedback that's invaluable. You know, I can think
Mm-hmm.
of a dozen times I have, you know, worked my ass off on a thing, you know, to bring it to my creative director, and, you know, in a heartbeat he's blown it up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um and, you know, and I understand why he blew it up, but the way he gave that constructive feedback had me, you know, rushing back
Mm-hmm.
to my computer because I
Mm-hmm.
was excited because I know how to fix it. I know
Yeah.
how to make it
Yeah.
better. And it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter if a week's worth of work just got, you know, lit on
Mm-hmm.
fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm excited to make the thing better.
Yeah.
um
And I think like when you're creating, it's very easy to kind of have blinders on and kind of get very tunnel visioned and not see like all of what you're doing and how it could be better. Yeah.
um yeah, that's so, yeah, so beyond people, beyond me being excited for people to see um the first issue through Kickstarter, I can't wait for them to
Mm-hmm.
get to page 80.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
if we did our job right,
Mm-hmm.
every copy should be stained, should be tear stained
Oh, good.
by that
Yes.
part.
Excellent.
um
Yeah.
I thank you, you know,
Thank you.
for chatting today. It's, you know, the I was telling Taylor this earlier. I'm not sure which order these are going to air,
Mm-hmm.
but the great thing about the internet is you can find incredibly talented collaborators anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The weird thing is it might be 2 years before you actually know what they look like.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so it has been, it's, you know, beyond, I mean, I'm thrilled and will forever be thankful and singing your praises
Oh,
for the work
thank you.
that you did on the book. But as far as today, thank you for letting me know you a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I appreciate it.
Mhm.
I thank you for sharing your story, and for your talents, and your passion and your care. I legitimately cannot fucking wait to see what you do next.
Oh.
Because, like I said, I beyond this book, I am a fan,
Oh.
and I can't wait to see what comes next. I'm
Mhm.
thrilled um, to see your stories. You know,
Oh.
you're, you know, I think it will be proven out. A lot of this is like behind the scenes stuff, that you're a fantastic collaborator. I think that will be borne out more once these books start coming out. But you're a hell of a creative force on your own. And I can't wait to see the full Meredith on display. And you've been kind to share some of your ideas with me. They're wonderful, and
Oh,
I can't wait for them to see the light of day as well.
oh, thank you so much. And it has been a true pleasure to work with you on Charlie Spot, and I hope we continue to collaborate on stuff in the future.
Absolutely. So before we go,
Mm.
um, how can people find you if they want to see more of your work, learn more about you? Where can we send them?
So I post more regularly on Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is Meredith, MER_DET. And my Twitter is Meredith with two T's, MERDETT. Meredith is a bastardization of my name, Meredith. So just think of me as Meredith.
You got it. Thank you again. And I can't wait for people to see Charlie's work. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, and thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So that's Meredith, and I think you can hear a lot of those X factors that went into making Charlie Spot as good as it was. There's talent, and then there's passion, and when you kind of bring that passion and love that Meredith brought to the book, it's no doubt that whenever I got a new page from her, it just made me beam ear to ear, and I'm thrilled to share her and her work with you. 2021 is going to be big for Meredith between Charlie Spot and MPLS Sound, which I can't wait to read. She's going to have 2 books out next year, and I would not be surprised if all of a sudden we see that rocket ship put on her back and she just gets to go wherever she wants. She's incredibly talented, such a wonderful collaborator and storyteller. I'm thrilled I got to spend 80 pages with her and 2+ years, and now you get to jump on the Meredith hype train early. So follow her links, check it out, and if you haven't already, check out our Charlie Spot campaign. There's still a bunch of great rewards out there that specifically can go help support Meredith. As of right now, there's still several of her original pages that you can pick up, as well as her very special convention experience. So that's a way that you can help support Meredith directly and the campaign. Check it out. Thank you so much. I'll see you at the next Charlie Spot interview.